Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Raising the New Earth with Brooke and Noah. It is my great pleasure. It is our great pleasure to introduce to you a very special guest today. Her name is Miriam Ashkenazi. Miriam is a Kabbalah teacher of 20 years, a Kabbalistic astrologist, and a mother of 5 from the Kabbalah Center. We are super excited about having her share her expertise and her insights into Kabbalah and Kabbalistic astrology. So welcome, Miriam.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. That's exciting.
Absolutely. Brooke, do you want to start?
Yeah, we are so excited to have you here. And I personally am very interested to just hear from the Kabbalah angle. I've learned a lot from Noah, not a whole lot, but coming not familiar at all really with Kabbalah. I'm excited to hear your insights specifically with astrology. So I guess to get started, I would love to know, how you initially became interested in studying, Kabbalistic astrology, and if you always felt like a personal connection to it, or just kind of a little bit more of your background there.
Okay, so first of all, I'm involved with the teaching, with the study of Kabbalah for about over 25 years. I would say that my interest in astrology started way before. Since I'm a child, I was very curious, but never really, like many others that might be curious, reading a little bit about your sign, about other signs. I never delved much deeper into that because it was very interesting, but I don't know at that point, being introduced to just traditional astrology, how deeper I wanted to delve into that. When I started my process and spiritual journey with the wisdom of Kabbalah, I learned about Kabbalistic astrology, of course, and the incorporation of both wisdoms, Kabbalah and astrology. That's what really clicked, because it made a lot of sense with the wisdom that teaches you about the journey of the soul, about the work that we're meant to do in this lifetime, with the process of the soul's evolution and change and growth. So this is when I really got interested with Kabbalistic astrology. My first years in Kabbalah, I was deeply engaged with the teaching and the study. I didn't yet explore deeper into Kabbalistic astrology. We did have 1 or 2 astrologers at the Kabbalah Center. Today, they're like around 20. But let's say around 15 years ago, this is when I decided to kind of focus my study and my teaching and my practices with individuals and students and clients, specifically in advising with the tool of Kabbalistic astrology. So this is basically it. And since then, this is my path.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I love that. Yeah. Just for me personally with astrology, it was always something that I saw kind of as a fun thing, but just recently it's amazing, especially when you start learning more like energy and even all, spiritual concepts, that there's so much that ties into that with astrology. And like when you really look from an energetic standpoint, just it makes sense that the planets have an energy field. So of course they're going to, in some ways, influence planet Earth. So yeah. With that though, how do you see, or what are the similarities and the differences in Kabbalistic astrology from, what would be, and I think that there's different angles of astrology in general, but yeah, it just kind of
there are different schools of astrology, but let's just take in consideration the traditional astrology, right? So basically, first of all, to be clear, we all basing our information, interpretation, wisdom from the same source. We all look at the movements of the planet, at the cosmos, at the shifts of the constellations, of the signs. We all look at the same information. Even when you produce a chart, right, you're going to see the same thing if you look at different schools of astrology, traditional astrology and Kabbalistic astrology. What's different, there are many differences, but I know our time is limited, so I'll try to focus on a few very important ones. First of all is the intention. Okay, so the intention in looking at the setting of the stars, the planets, all the constellations, is not really definitive or futuristic from the point of view of a Kabbalist. Okay, we don't access this information because we just want to analyze someone's personality and learn psychologically what's really who they are and how they act and their behavior patterns. That's not, even though there is importance for it, but that's not where it ends. Or we're not looking at it because we want to interpret the future and know what's going to happen to us or what's going to happen in the world, as sometimes traditional astrology, you read the horoscope, right? Or you read so this is not really the intention. The intention really, we use the astrological setting in order, like a navigation map, to help us and understand how certain energies take place and how it can assist us in our spiritual journey. So basically, it's not, nothing is going to, there is something very basic in the teaching of Kabbalah that kind of will give us the answer for that. We learn that when we come into this world, we also come with the potential to make choices in our life. Okay, meaning that maybe we don't control everything that happens to us, but when something do happen to us, or when we need to make choices, we really have the potential, I'm saying the potential, to look at it and decide how do we want to respond to it, right? And because of that, we're very much, if we're tuned to that consciousness and awareness, we're very much the masters of our own destiny, okay? And the reason that we look at Kabbalistic astrology, that we want to look at the setting, is that it can give us the additional information, wisdom, a bigger picture into the energies that we want to maybe transform and how to overcome, because we have the ability, according to Kabbalah, to go above the influences of the stars. Or at the same time, what energies we want to activate and to utilize more in our life, because this is really a gift that we receive and we want to be tuned to those energies. So it's really up to us. So we don't read through those energies in a way of like what's going to happen or who we are, but more how we can use it so we can grow spiritually. I hope that that's clear. That's one difference. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And I think that's such an important note to make too, because I think that often astrology is miscategorized as like something that is just going to tell you the future. And I don't think in any sense that that's ever what it was meant to be. And like you were saying that, and well, going back, from a Christian perspective, especially, and I think a lot of religious, they are like, astrology is not, it conflicts. And I think it's because, the idea that we're given free will, and that this idea that everything's already pre-written completely conflicts with that. But if you take a step back, that's not what this is at all. It's essentially being able to harness the energies and live up to kind of, I guess, your spiritual destiny or potential, and go beyond
potential. I like that word.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, makes so much sense.
Yeah, and it's interesting because also, for example, when I conduct a reading with someone, I always tell them, I'm not going to tell you where you are today or how you turned out because of all the cosmic settings at the time of your birth. It's really up to the person's spiritual evolution and growth, where they are, so it's not, we don't read into, as you're saying, like categorize the person, the personality. It's really a dynamic energy that the person wants to tap into and work with that.
Yeah, that's that. And that is so powerful when you're able to do that. Yeah. Right. So when we were, because Noah and I originally were just kind of researching on the age of Aquarius, and kind of putting together an episode in that, just kind of in that realm. But one thing that, as I was kind of looking at references to age of Aquarius and all of that, I was really surprised at how much the Bible had, and especially the Old Testament, that could be tied back to an astrological perspective, which I had never really heard about before, like just from Abraham being an astrologer or being, I guess that's the right term. I'm not even sure, but and then the sons of Jacob all representing astrological signs. There were just things that I came across that I was so surprised. But with that being said, I guess from the angle of the age of Aquarius, what do you see that means? When did it start? And how can we benefit from it or prepare ourselves to really, tap into that energy?
So first of all, it's a very profound question. I'll try to answer, because a lot of my perspective, which is the Kabbalistic perspective, is a build on other concepts and ideas that comes from the Kabbalistic teaching. So we'll try to simplify it so we're all can relate to it. So first of all, from a Kabbalistic perspective, Rabbi Isaac Luria, which is the Ari, is the one that came up with on the Kabbalistic perspective with the idea of the age of Aquarius. And in Hebrew, it's called Dor De'ah. De'ah, it means the generation of knowledge. That what he basically said, and that was 450 years ago, is that in this generation that started then in his time and, into our times today, it's actually a generation of knowledge that came. It's not, King Solomon says there is nothing new under the sun. This generation is not a generation that is born for the first time. We are reborn as a generation that experienced the splitting of the Red Sea, the generation that experienced the sin of the golden calf. It's a generation that has all the tools and all the power to kind of claim our rightful place with totality, with the infinite, with the light. Why is it the generation of knowledge? Because if you can see, we talk about the scientists that discovered the outer planets, for example, right? We're talking about hundreds of years ago, some even in this, 1930s, Pluto was discovered. All those discoveries, it's a revelation of things that already exist. So we're tapping into information, we're tapping into wisdom that already exists, and the souls that live right now, has that ability. Now, what do we want to achieve with that? And that's what's unique for Kabbalah, the approach about the age of Aquarius, because you think about the age of Aquarius and freedom, but freedom from what, right? What is freedom from what? And the Kabbalists are teaching us that really what we can achieve is the ultimate freedom of chaos, from any type of chaos that exists in our life. Now, this is something that is who dreams about freedom from chaos? Like, we're so wrapped up with, who really can say that 24/7 out of their time, they're busy with the removal of chaos of the world. We're so wrapped up with that, with living with chaos, with anything that you can consider in relationship, financially, medically, we're like so with the fact even that we're aging, right? There's so much around the idea of chaos that this is why I'm saying it's like a deep concept, because when you look at history, when this generation came again and again, it was one step closer or almost achieving this state of ultimate connection to the ultimate removal of chaos. And that, I don't want to get too much into the history unless you want to, the stories of the golden calf and the story but all those stories reveal a lot about, this, or the story of the Exodus, living out of Egypt. The Israelites didn't really want to leave Egypt, and you think about what they achieved. That's an ultimate example for like holding on to the chaos. Chaos, it's also the comfortability, the physicality that we have, the positions, right? if we as society, as humanity, going to really be connected to this idea fully and strive in our consciousness, in our awareness every day, we have the potential, we have the ability in this generation. And this is the age of Aquarius. This is what we're talking about. This is what real freedom is about. So when you look at it from a Kabbalistic perspective, this is the goal. This is what we can achieve if we start engaging ourselves with wisdom, with knowledge, with consciousness and awareness, that we really, aim towards removal of chaos.
I love that. Well, and just tying in what I kind of know, not knowing anything really much about Kabbalah, but first of all, the coming into the age of knowledge, what I was thinking of as well was like quantum physics that we know now, right. So that it's existed forever, like that quantum state, but that we actually now have that knowledge to tap into. And the more I learn about that, the more I see that spirituality and science are just so wrapped up in each other. Yeah.
And more scientists are, growing up to that idea only today. Not, it's like,
right.
Yeah. Well, how much can we access?
Yeah. We're like, we've kind of, as much as that was like such an explosive understanding or shift in a paradigm. And Noah and I have talked about this before. We've barely scratched the surface in kind of like reframing the way that we look at the world. So that's why it makes so much sense that, and, when you think of an age and, moving into the areas, it takes a while, like for these old ideas to kind of, I guess, be removed from the consciousness in a sense, and being able to tap into these different ways of seeing things. So right. I love that.
And this is what Kabbalah is about, because we call it's a shift of consciousness. There's nothing more important than that in the world that we can all do together.
Absolutely. And then going back to the removal of chaos, that's what that shift in consciousness, like, it allows you to kind of step away from all of your mind and, tap into more of that spiritual understanding. So yeah, it ties in so well. That's beautiful.
And I also think you mentioned something really important, Miriam. You said that not, maybe I interpreted like this, but not everyone wants to remove him or herself from chaos. Because chaos is drama. It's the malchut, right? It's the part of the levels of Kabbalah. We're going to talk about it a little bit if we may, but it's bathing in this unnecessary energy, but it's a decision. So until someone decides and desires to do things differently, to not be influenced from the drama, what we can see with our eyes, and the energies that really create chaos in our lives, but we're attached to it. So until someone breaks that chain, then there will be no positivity. There will be no lifting to the next level. But so many people, and I see it, especially older generation, I must say, that they are so influenced by what is going on, what they hear. First thing in the morning, they listen to the news, right? And that's going to be their day. That's the tone they're going to set up for the rest of the day.
Right. And it's all attachments, right? We don't want to let go. We don't want to let go. We can all imagine times in our life when we had the power to let go, and how a brighter, better, more elevated situations arouse later on, right? So there's so much depth into that concept. It's just like a glimpse of where we're going, where we should go.
Very much so. Yeah. And in Exodus, you're right. The Israelites did not want to leave. I'm like, why don't you want to leave? You were slaves. Your family members were killed while they were building, the pyramids or whatever they did there. And still you didn't want to leave. So that's like the greatest conflict within us. Like, there's a desire to keep moving in the direction of what we're used to, our comfortable space, and there's maybe a little less desire to change things up. And that takes commitment, and that takes courage, that takes willingness and desire to trust with this absolute certainty that Karen Berg has talked about, and Rav Berg, both the establishers of Kabbalah. They talked about absolute certainty. If you don't have absolute certainty, you will see that chaotic elements in your life. If you do have absolute certainty in yourself and the creator in the process that you're going, you will see miracles in your life.
Right. And you're reminding me, you're talking about Rav Berg, which opened the Kabbalah Center for the masses, right? he always gave this beautiful example. It's like you bet on the same horse for 3,400 years, right? You're like, keep on going on the same, and it doesn't lead you anywhere.
Right.
Right. It never wins.
Yeah.
But it feels safe. So that's why I think,
Right. Exactly. So there's a lot into that idea, into that concept, but just the tip of the iceberg.
We even talked about in the previous episode, Brooke and I, about how we dated until we found our soulmate. And it seemed like they just changed faces, but it's the same scenario over and over again until we decided to grow spiritually, until we decided to go through an intrinsic change and transformation. We didn't see any change on the outside because the inside didn't change.
Right. Exactly. And I think what you're saying, it's very powerful from a Kabbalistic astrology perspective, because one of the things that is identified when, for example, you do your personal chart is a concept that we call in Kabbalah tikkun, translated into correction. If we want to break the patterns of our life, if we want to really let go of the baggage that we carry with us from one lifetime into another lifetime, we need to understand the connection between our past lives, our present, and what is the energy, as we call tikkun, that we require for us to develop and nurture moving into the future, into our next soul's evolution. So that concept is also something that Kabbalistic astrology can really help with, right? It's not always easy. I mean, let's take your example with relationships, right? A person can totally, first of all, is to recognize that there is a pattern, right? Not everybody understands there is a pattern. Second is you understand there is a pattern. Where is it coming from? And how do I break it? So if you don't see that pattern in the scope of like past life, this lifetime, where do I need to go? How do I need to change? It's very hard to break out of this pattern.
Absolutely. So the knowingness is probably the first step, and then the desire to change will be the second.
Right.
I would assume.
Exactly.
Right. So I can personally attest to how impactful your astrology readings were and are in our family, because when I remember we did a chart read for every child, and I remember our third child was born, and she was an infant, maybe 10 days old, like napping, and Miriam told me over the phone when we did the chart reading that she's going to grow up to be like, an energy bunny, and she's a leader. And I'm looking at my infant 10 days old, like, I can't see any of that. And she is exactly that, like exactly to a T, which blew my mind. It's like, how did you know? Like, how did you even? So for us, we depend and count on Kabbalistic astrology tremendously. We also use it for progress in our business. So not just natal chart, but everything, natal chart and comparison reading to see where you are, where you're going to be, where you want to be. So understanding intricate concepts in a really simple way. And Miriam has this beautiful gift of simplifying everything for those who wish to do their charts.
Thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely. So that said, how do you share your expertise, and how do you utilize your gifts of being able to do Kabbalistic astrology with your children?
So are you asking me about my children? Or are you asking
about your children?
Okay. So, I mean, I think maybe I'll also give some personal examples. But as I said, I think it's very much connected to what I just said a minute before you spoke about the charts, about the idea of tikkun. And I'll bring two examples. But, when you look at someone's chart, there's so many elements. You basically look at the 10 planets, right? The sun and the moon, Venus, Uranus. I won't name all of them. And as an astrologer, and as a Kabbalist, and as someone that also uses intuition, the positions and how it's all set up, you understand what is really the spiritual goal of the person is. Okay, put it all together. Now, I'll mention two things that maybe just give an example, because it's and to answer that. So for example, when you look at someone's chart, and especially as a mom, right, you look at the person's moon, for example. And if you want to understand how to become a better mom, what this kid need or their relationship to you, you will take a look at their moon. I'll give you an example. The moon is also conduit for emotions and sensitivity, but also the moon is representation of the female energy and the motherly energy. Okay, so also your moon will tell you something about your relationship with your mom, by the way, if you want to kind of look at generations. But for example, you know, two of my kids are born with moon in Capricorn, my oldest ones. By knowing what moon in Capricorn means, I know their experience of me and what can potentially be a negative experience of me as well. So I am aware of what I need to work on. So for example, in this example, moon in Capricorn, for someone that has a moon in Capricorn, they might view their mom as very strict, very demanding, or someone that has high expectations. Okay, so I'm aware of it in my interaction with my kids. Those are my older kids, are already teenagers, right? I am constantly aware of it, and I don't want to come across that way. And if I am, it's really being done with awareness. This is really what they need. So this is just a simple example. There are many different moons. It sits in many different ways. But at the same time, when you understand what is someone's tikkun, or in astrological terms, it's where is someone's north node, you also know what they came to work on and become and transform in this lifetime. So for example, I have one daughter that has a tikkun in Capricorn, which is one of the meanings of it is that she came to become more independent in this lifetime. Now, she came to not rely on what her parents will tell her to do or not to do. She has to come up with her own choices. So when she comes to me for advice, if I don't have this information, I'm just like, I'm a Cancer. You know, I just want to protect and I want to give and I'll just function from my nature and do whatever she asks for. And it will seem like it's a perfect harmony, but that's not what she needs in order to become the greatest version of herself. So I'll work on that aspect within me and I'll push her to do what she needs, even though it's not necessarily my nature. So there is a lot of dynamics that comes across when you understand the chart, when you look at the chart, and then applying it in raising your kids to become really what they need to become, not what you envision for them, right? With your limited perception.
So beautiful, huh?
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, and just from a so practical perspective, like just to be able to, you know, understand your own astrological, you know, underpinnings, I guess, for lack of a better word, to that you're coming with to your child, and then what they need. Like, I don't know, like it just clicked. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to do this, because like it's like you can parent. You have, and I only have one child, but like, and I know you have 5, which is, so I'm sure you get a full understanding of like the different personalities and that they all come with their own little unique souls. So it's like, not just understanding that like, oh, my kids seem to need me to kind of, they have different needs for me, but to have like a deeper perspective of like, okay, this is what their kind of perception tends to lean towards. So my parenting might need to like shift a little this way, or that they probably need something a little bit more like this than another child who, you know, might have a different moon, you know, not in Capricorn. Exactly. Or and
every kid brings a different dynamic, and you need to be different with every kid. We know that on a superficial level, that but now to understand it from a deeper perspective, it's not just to understand what they need to work on and become, but I think when you look at the chart, you also see, you're able to see, of course, with an equipped Kabbalistic astrologer, you're able to see some stories from past life. You're able to dig into that, so you understand why they need to develop that energy, what was not working for them so well before, what they used to fall into constantly over and over again. So in this lifetime, you don't want to create the same scenario, which you potentially will if you won't be aware of it. right? This is already being influenced by the stars, right? Are we above the influences of the stars? We understand it, we work to overcome it, or we're just like robots, you know, that flow, it goes with nature. We want to be above that influences that might be challenging, and we totally have the ability.
As far as the for the past lives, because I'm very interested in that, and I have not studied it very deeply. But for you and as a part of your reading, do you kind of use your chart to navigate that, or is it kind of an intuition that comes to you of past lives, or is it more?
It's mostly the chart. It's mostly the chart, and intuition always comes, sometimes more, sometimes less, but from the chart itself. And it's also incorporation of many other things. You see, there is one aspect that it's very clear to recognize, but from doing the entire chart, things just come. But it's, I would say it's 85% the chart. The rest is intuition.
Yeah.
I wanted to comment on what you said about, knowing what each child needs. At some point, our son, who is the oldest, he's 9 now, and we also did a read for him when he was an infant. So he said, "Ima," in Hebrew, "Ima, why do you treat us differently?" I said, "Because you have different tikkun." And then we went into what each and every one of them needs, and how I can help them to grow to that potential, right? And we even came across a bullying situation in his school, and knowing what he needed to work on about his confidence and standing up. This situation came in his school where someone was bullying him. And I said, okay, so where is your voice? What are you going to do about it? So knowing what I need to do as his mother in this lifetime helped me not say, oh, my poor baby, I'm so sorry for you. Had I not had the tools, the Kabbalistic astrology tools, to tell me what my son needs from me in this lifetime, I wouldn't be able to handle it the way that I did. As like, stand up for yourself. What are you going to do about it? How did he make you feel? What is the next step you're going to? I would be completely, oh no, so this didn't happen because of knowing what I need to work on with our son.
Right.
Powerful tools. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the tree of life versus the tree of knowledge. So what is the difference, and how do we use that in Kabbalah?
So now you're introducing another very deep and profound idea in Kabbalah. So first of all, many people are familiar with the concept of tree of life and tree of knowledge from the story of Adam and Eve, right? In the Garden of Eden, that they could eat as much as they could from the tree of, I'm sorry, someone just entered in, and the tree of life. And if they would touch the tree of knowledge, we know all the stories. So we also understand that a lot of the biblical stories, according to Kabbalah, are really codes, and there is much deeper meaning. They're not literal as they are, but just to refer, this is where this concept came across first, right? But in Kabbalah, when we talk about those ideas of tree of knowledge, we actually call it the tree of knowledge of good and bad, and the tree of life. So it says that, at the end of the day, we talked about the age of Aquarius, right? Some call it Messiah, or we all want to get to a place where we higher, all connected, elevated, removal of chaos, right? Now, there is 2 ways to get there. We will get there as humanity. We will get there at some point. But how will we get there? Will we get there through pain and suffering? Will we get there through ups and downs and learning in the hard way? Or are we able to get there when we're really equipped with spiritual wisdom and awareness and consciousness, that we constantly can experience life as pleasure, right? Is that possible? And this is actually the differentiation between the tree of knowledge, good and bad, and the tree of life. Most of us, if not all of us, most of the time, we live in the reality of the tree of knowledge, good and bad. Because something happens to us, it's painful, we cry, we're depressed, We learn the lesson, maybe we won't do it again. Something good happens to us, it affects us. It's like it's like the ups and downs of life. This is very natural. That is we call it the 1% reality, right? This is and it's a choice. We can live our life like that. A person, like you're saying, can be in relationships and constantly hit the same, meet the same person, right? And then constantly go through the same heartbreaks and never learn the lesson, right? Mm-hmm. Or when you decide that everything that happens is for a reason and you try to look for the deeper meaning, and that you take the challenge to overcome it, and it really helps you to elevate to a higher place, then the painful experience acting in your life differently. And that's a connection to the tree of life. Tree of life, it's always good. Even when it doesn't feel good, it's good. So the tree of life is like, I'm connected to this reality when I know everything is in my favor. Everything is here to support me to grow and evolve and become a better version of myself. And when I experience life in that manner, you don't experience those ups and downs in the same way. So it's really a choice. I hope that's what you were looking for, Noah.
Yes.
That's really what it is from a Kabbalistic perspective.
Yes. I mean, who wants to live in a roller coaster of life? Like, enough is enough. So once you realize your potential, once you tap into your soulful purpose, your correction, you have reached an homeostasis where nothing shifts you too much to the right, too much. Of course, you have emotions, you acknowledge that, but you're not easily moved like a leaf in the wind. That doesn't happen for me, at least since finding Kabbalah, for sure not.
Right. And I think it's important to mention, it doesn't mean that you won't experience struggles or challenges. In the reality of the tree of life, we do experience that, but we do view it and we experience it differently, right? The way that we relate to it is different than the reality of the tree of knowledge, good and bad. And that's when we talk about the story of Adam and Eve, they lived in a perfect world, and eating from the tree of life, that's what brought all humanity to a reality where there is pain and suffering and chaos and ups and downs and a lot of struggles to earn the light rather than live in that reality naturally.
Right. And looking at things differently brings me to the next question of the last 2 years or 2.5 years of pandemic. For me, I relied heavily on Kabbalah because I felt that you and Yael Yardeni and the Kabbalistic astrologists in the center took a bird's eye view that really helped me seeing the world shifting, but not in a fear state and not in a fear-infused scenario. Really helped me grow in my faith even more towards Kabbalah. Really helped me shed a light on what's going on, and knowing that there's something good that it's going to come from this. So I never held resentment towards anyone in particular. It's never they versus me. There's no they. It's what we need to do as to tilt that scale of consciousness into that new realm that we're going to. So can you explain to us how Kabbalah, astrological Kabbalah, and Kabbalah in general views those 2 years?
So it's so interesting because so much has happened with the big planets. And when I say maybe big planets is not the right definition, is the planets that move slower, the ones that are further from us, that has, when they go through shifts and changes, it's actually an indication for something for humanity. Okay, there are planets that called more like the personal ones, closer to the sun, closer to us, right? Venus, Mercury, Mars. And as we go further, we get to Saturn, we get to Jupiter and Saturn, and then Uranus, Pluto, and Neptune are the ones that are very far away. They move much slower of course, in a relation to us. And when they go through certain shifts, it's very meaningful for humanity. So this is just generally, but it's interesting because we started to get preparation for what's going to happen when Uranus moved into Taurus in 2018. Okay, right? When did exactly the pandemic started? 2020?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So
technically the end of 2019.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, but that's
but for us, yeah.
Right. So Uranus moved into Taurus, and Uranus is the planet of changes, of shifts, of revolutions. Of, you talk about the age of Aquarius. Uranus is the planet of Aquarius, right? It has everything to do with unexpected changes, and sometimes it's a planet that if you're not prepared for its influence, is like it says, be prepared to fly, and if you're not, it's like the ground is lifted under your feet and you can fall, right? It's how prepared you are for the unexpected. So Uranus entered into Taurus, and Taurus is everything that we feel secure with in the physical world. Okay, so we know it's a process of 7 years of questioning, of things that are happening completely out of the blue, that are rocking this world. And when I say physically, it's financially, it's everything that has to do with the government or anything that has to do with authority, and medically as well. So it could be on a good aspect, new revelations, new medications, it can be a lot of amazing things, but it can also be something like we experienced in the last 2 years. Now, what happened is all of that, Uranus is there, and also Neptune is in the sign of Pisces for a long time. It's still there and was there. And Neptune is the planet of very spiritual planet. It's the planet of the unlimited thought, then we call it in Kabbalah the 99% reality, right? The subconscious, the non-physical reality. But it's also very much, and it's in Pisces. Pisces is the sign of Neptune, so it's like double the energy. It's also connected to the energy of illusion. So what happens is, if you remember, I don't know how you felt, but it's like, is that really happening? What's really happening? What's true and what's not? And you hear about everything in the news, and is that true? Is the vaccine really does that? No. And then anti-vaccine, right? And then everything you hear, you feel it's a conspiracy, but maybe not. It's like complete illusion. You think about the election, right? And the fraud in the elections and all this, everything seems like, I can't believe anything I hear, right? So it's those energies together. And at the same time, later on, 2020, 21, exactly, I don't remember the date, we do have something very powerful taking place. And this is Saturn and Jupiter. We have what we call a great conjunction in the sign of Capricorn. So now Capricorn represents establishment, represent everything we're familiar with, all the structure, represent society, and Saturn and Jupiter meeting in that sign is something is going to take place. It's like an explosion. Something is going to happen. Now, it's interesting, moving into getting out of that, Saturn and Jupiter moved into Aquarius. Now, Capricorn and Aquarius are complete opposite. Aquarius is like, we all going to do it together. We don't need leaders. We are, free, and freedom of speech, freedom of thought. Think about everything that happened with, Black Lives Matters, everything that happens again, coming up again. This is really the shift of the energy into Aquarius with Saturn and Jupiter is now we're in a time, if I need to summarize it, it's we have to break the old in order to create something new. There is no more room for things to function the same way. I remember those. Again, I'm not supporting, it just comes to me as just facts. There was this defund the police, right? What you felt that is the one thing that protects everyone. Now we don't want that, right? Everything is in question. Everything that seems so, we want a new reality. And this is cosmically what happens, because new reality has to emerge. It can't, the same shift of powers has to happen. Things cannot function the same way as it's been for many, many, many years. And that's what happens cosmically, showing us and shifting us. And hopefully that we grab on those energies from a spiritual perspective and really go through what we need to go through with all the information that we shared before, with the age of Aquarius, with shift of consciousness, that we all really understanding that we're not just puppets for that energy and need to be influenced by that. It's really an opportunity. It's really a tool for us to bring everyone together, to create unity and to create a shift in consciousness, right? So this is really, in a very quick explanation, what really happened in the last 2 years cosmically. Yeah, that influenced everything that we experienced. Yeah.
I feel like that resonates so well with just what our entire podcast is based upon. It's like really like taking it to that higher level. And what you were saying with like, you know, getting out of the world of chaos, that when you can rise above that, like that's when you're down and like seeing it from like the angle on the ground, kind of, so to speak, like it feels very chaotic. But then when you can look at it and take in the astrological understanding of it, it's like, okay, like these are our lessons. This is our opportunity and our to wake up and to see some of the illusions that we were living under. Just all of that spoke to me so beautifully.
Right, because it's all one at the end.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We say the same things.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, and again, it's like looking at, it's like you can look at so many different angles of spirituality and just ways to look at the world. But when you really get into the deeper meaning through all of it, it's all saying the same thing. As in, we were saying, it's all one. It's all the same. Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So what should we expect from the new year in January a little bit? If you can share with us, January 2023, what can we be on a lookout for or try to prepare for?
Okay, so there's a few things that are taking place. But first of all, in the month of January, what's interesting, you know, the month of January typically is also the month of Capricorn. So Capricorn comes always after Sagittarius. So Sagittarius is the month of miracles and wonders, and, you know, the sky is the limit and expansion of wisdom, of spirituality. And then come the most practical month, Capricorn. And you talk about New Year resolution, right? Mm-hmm. When you think about January, mm-hmm. first everybody think what changes I want to make in the year, what seeds I want to plant, what practically, what do I want to manifest, right? So this is what Capricorn is all about. But what's interesting that in the beginning of the month, we have the planet Mercury going in retrograde, and it's in Capricorn. So whenever a planet goes in retrograde in general, I know Mercury in retrograde has a reputation of not a great time, because people say, you know, there's always miscommunications and delays in travel, and it's technology messes up and things like that. But again, there is the spiritual layer of what a planet in retrograde means. So Mercury in retrograde is actually give us a time to look back, to reevaluate, to re-see things, rethink everything that you say with reorganize, redo. And so it's interesting. We are coming into a month when we need to manifest, but Mercury goes into retrograde. So what spiritually is required from us, and because it's in Capricorn, it has a significant, specific secret or message. Capricorn has to do with our life lessons also, with our pains and struggle, has to do with our karma and karmic process as well. So what it asks us to do is really to look back at all our past in the last few years. Where did we feel that we failed, or that we were betrayed, or negative feelings, or even things that appeared financially, materialistically in our life, how we would do things differently. We want to really look at it and really dig deeper to learn our lesson. Because first, Mercury tells us, do that, and then you can step confident into the future. Then you can apply the energy of Capricorn with responsibility, because Capricorn is responsibility. You take responsibility, you manifest all your dreams, everything you wanted to do, you can take an action. But don't take an action before before you do that, because you want to come into the new year with a new slate. And you're not coming with a new slate when you just build and pile on top of that past. So that's very interesting. It happens in the beginning of the month, and that influences the year because it happens in the beginning, in the seed level. So that's one thing that is taking place. Something else that happens in the beginning of the month is, remember we mentioned Uranus in Taurus, and since the sun is entering Capricorn for the majority of the month of January, it's in a good aspect with this Uranus in Taurus. So Uranus is outside of the box, shifts, taking risks, and Capricorn is manifest, leadership, responsibility. So it tells us to really think differently on how we want to really step up this year and be open for new ways to do it. Okay, don't stay stuck in the past. Uranus come to shake things up. If you don't take advantage of this energy, it's okay. It passes. It might come around again. You can wait a few years or few months, whenever it comes around, depends which aspect. So nothing happens, but why not to take advantage of it when it's here to support you? So that's another shift of energy that takes place. And there's a lot of little things, but I think one thing that I will mention is that this year, something really significant, we have the planet Pluto that moves super slow, is actually moving in March into the sign of Aquarius. So again, we have this energy of, and Pluto is the karmic planet. As we said, Saturn is, but also Pluto is even more. Is like in evolutionary astrology, Pluto is the star, not the sun. You know, it's all about the evolution of the soul and the process of karma and what we came to learn in the life journey of our soul beyond this lifetime. So Pluto moving into Aquarius, we should expect a lot of major changes as well, and changes that has to do with society and breaking of the rules, and maybe how we established things in the past as society, how we based our, all our security system before. Everything has to kind of, sometimes things has to fall in order to be rebuilt again. So it might be a little scary, but it comes with a lot of promise for the future if we connect to that energy in a positive and transformative way. So that's another thing that takes place. It's worth talking about it more and read about it more, but this is just a little bit about that energy. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
We should get ready.
Yes, we should.
Yeah. So we'll probably experience a little more chaos, but knowing that it's all there for a reason.
But if you're prepared for it, it's very different. I'll give you an example. I really have to give this example because, there are times in our life where Uranus, the planet, the big shaker, is actually making significant shifts in our chart, all of us. And it's not a coincidence that it happens around the adolescence years. It happens around, how do you call, you'll tell me, Noah, the Gila Ma'avar.
Premenopause, postmenopause, menopause.
Yes, the age like around midlife, right? Midlife crisis, right? Around that time. Yeah. So Uranus come to that point, for example, in every person's chart, it will come to a place where it's in opposition from the birth Uranus. So it means it creates some sort of a pull, some sort of like a conflict. Okay. Now, if the person is prepared, midlife crisis can look like, I wake up all of a sudden and I feel, half of my life is gone, everything, whatever you can say about midlife crisis and the negative influences of it. But if a person is prepared for that and know that has a serious shift has to take place in my life, and you build yourself up to it, you can really shift your career around this time and be excited about it. You can decide that this doesn't work for you. So it's like those energies are scary, but if you're prepared for it, you're going to elevate from it so much. Yeah. So that's just a quick example. So don't be scared.
I love that example. Yeah. I've heard that with Saturn too, like people say your Saturn return.
Right, Saturn return.
Because it's a similar energy.
It's a similar energy, and that shows up in the chart every 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so there's a lot of points in the charts that are significant. And again, astrology, you can use once in a lifetime, do your natal chart or do a family chart, but you can do what, one of the things that a lot of clients that really use the wisdom of astrology to support their growth do is that at least once a year or once every 6 months, they come for a progression chart. So they keep on looking on the influences and how do they support them in this upcoming year or upcoming, however period of time you want to choose. But that's a constant tool to work with. It's not just once in a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I have to ask you, because I'm seeing for our viewers and listeners that are seeing us on YouTube, I see a beautiful painting behind you saying Nun Taf He, which means speak your mind, one of the 72 names of God. Is it Yosef Antebi's? Or
the artist?
Yeah, the artist.
Yes, the artist is Yosef Antebi. He does beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful
so shout
art.
out to Yosef. He was our first Kabbalah teacher.
Oh, beautiful. Definitely shout out to him. And he does those amazing in different formats. And they're available for sale on Kabbalah.com. So if someone is curious.
Yes. Yeah. Beautiful, meaningful painting with one of God's 72 names. And for those of us that are seeking more information, Kabbalah.com, KABBALAH.com is going to give you a lot of information. You can do online courses as well. And if you ever wondered how Kabbalistic astrology works, we are offering, Miriam is offering a 20% coupon code for our listeners who wish to book a chart read with her. The code is active from January 19th all the way through January 30th with the code AstroPodcast 2023, and we'll post it in our notes as well. It will change your life. It will touch your heart, touch your soul, and change your life.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, Miriam, for being with us. We are now smarter, way smarter. And definitely more elevated than we started. So thank you so much.
For sure. Yes.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely.
It's beautiful.
Bye.
Yay.